At 16, I believed the hardest part of my life was about to begin. I stood at the airport with a single worn suitcase, a passport I had barely looked at before, and parents who couldn't even pretend to be emotional. My mother hugged me for less than 2 seconds. My father simply handed me an envelope with a boarding pass and said, "This is the best thing for everyone." Those were the last words they spoke, before turning around and walking away. Without looking back, I watched them disappear into the crowd, wondering what I had done wrong. I wasn't a troubled child. I earned good grades, respected my parents, and dreamed of becoming an engineer. Yet somehow I had become an inconvenience they wanted. Thousands of miles away, I was sent to live with an elderly, distant relative in Germany, a woman I had never met before. Her name was Greta. She wasn't wealthy, but she welcomed me with genuine kindness. She hugged me tighter than my own parents ever had and said, "As long as I'm alive, you'll always have a home." Learning a new language, adapting to a different culture, and attending a foreign school were overwhelming. Every night I cried silently into my pillow, hoping my parents would call and say they had made a terrible mistake. Days turned into weeks, weeks became months. Birthdays passed, holidays came and went. The phone never rang eventually. I stopped waiting. Greta became my family. She taught me responsibility, honesty, and resilience. She often said, "Family isn't determined by blood. It's determined by who stays when life becomes difficult." Those words changed everything. By the time I graduated from university, I had built a successful career in financial technology. I worked relentlessly, starting from internships and eventually helping create software that transformed digital banking. Across Europe, my reputation grew. Investors trusted me. Opportunities multiplied. Meanwhile, I heard almost nothing about my parents. Occasionally, a distant cousin would mention that they had sold our old house, accumulated debts, and constantly blamed bad luck for every failure. Not once did they ask how I was doing. Years later, Greta passed away peacefully. Losing her was like losing the only real parent I had ever known. During the funeral, her lawyer approached me with a sealed letter. Inside, Greta wrote that meeting me had given her purpose during the final years of her life. She thanked me for treating her with love instead of obligation. She also revealed something I never expected. She had quietly invested in the fintech company I helped build. During its earliest days, she believed in me when nobody else did. Over decades, those investments had grown beyond imagination. Her entire estate, including company shares, real estate across Germany and Austria, investment portfolios, and private assets was left to me. The total estimated value exceeded $23 million. I stared at the documents in complete disbelief. For several minutes, I couldn't even speak. Greta hadn't simply left me money. She had left me proof that believing in someone can change an entire destiny. News of the inheritance spread surprisingly fast. Within 2 weeks, I received a phone call from an unfamiliar number. When I answered, I instantly recognized my mother's voice. She cried dramatically before saying, "We've missed you every single day." I nearly laughed. They had ignored me for nearly 20 years. Now they suddenly remembered they had a son. A week later, they arrived unannounced outside my office building. They looked older, exhausted, and financially broken. My father smiled awkwardly. "We've made mistakes," he admitted. "But family forgives." I invited them into a nearby cafe. For the first 30 minutes, they avoided discussing money. Instead, they asked about my health, my work in Germany. It all sounded rehearsed. Finally, my father cleared his throat. "We heard about Greta. I'm sorry for your loss." Then he leaned forward. "She wasn't your real family." "We are." My mother nodded. "You know, parents deserve support." I stayed silent. My father continued. "We've been struggling financially. Our debts are overwhelming. You inherited over 23 million euros. Helping us wouldn't hurt you." There it was, not love, not regret, money. I calmly asked them one question. "When I was 16, why did you send me away?" Neither answered immediately. Eventually, my mother whispered, "Things were difficult." I asked again. "What kind of difficult?" After another long silence, my father finally admitted the truth. I had never been sent overseas for a better education. I had been sent away because raising me interfered with their new business plans. Traveling internationally, relocating frequently, and maintaining a certain lifestyle became easier without a teenager. To them, shipping me abroad was simply convenient. I wasn't their priority, I was their obstacle. Hearing those words hurt more than I expected. But strangely, they also set me free. Every unanswered question from my childhood suddenly had an answer. Every lonely birthday, every silent Christmas, every ignored phone call, none of it had been accidental. It had been a choice. My parents chose convenience over their own child. My father interrupted my thoughts. "So what do you say?" I smiled politely. "I already decided years ago." They looked hopeful. "I'll always be grateful." Their faces brightened. Then I finished my sentence. "I'm grateful Greta became my family, and because of her I learned that love is earned through actions, not shared DNA." My mother's expression collapsed. My father became angry. "You owe us." He slammed his hand on the table. "We gave you life." I looked directly into his eyes, and Greta taught me how to live. "There's a difference." I stood up. Before leaving, I handed them a business card. It belonged to a respected financial counseling organization that helped families manage debt. "I won't finance your choices," I said calmly. "But if you genuinely want to rebuild your lives, these professionals can help." My father threw the card onto the floor. My mother burst into tears. Neither apologized, not once. As I walked away, I realized something remarkable. For the first time in my life, I felt completely at peace. Months later, I established the Greta Foundation. Its mission was simple: support abandoned teenagers studying abroad. Every year, hundreds of young people receive scholarships, housing assistance, language training, and emergency support. Because no child should feel as alone as I once did. One afternoon, I visited one of our scholarship students. He had arrived with only one suitcase. Just like I had, he nervously asked if everything would be okay. I smiled and repeated the same words Greta once told me. "As long as there are people who truly care, you'll always have a home." In that moment, I understood. The greatest inheritance Greta left me wasn't worth $23 million. It was compassion. Money built opportunities. Love built people. And while my parents spent decades chasing wealth they never found, Greta invested in a lonely 16-year-old boy and created a legacy that would continue changing lives long after both of us were gone.